What has the Emperor's Soul got to do with ChatGPT and prompt engineering? That's coming up. But first, some context. I'm reading through all of the Cosmere. Here's a handy timeline showing every currently published Cosmere-related work I know about as of August the 14th, 2025. Which, Brandon Sanderson may write a completely new novel by the time I upload this. Anyway, I'm quite early in my Cosmere journey. I read the first era of Mistborn, and then I read Elantris and the Hope of Elantris. And so I've skipped a bit ahead and read The Emperor's Soul, which was published in 2012. My next book will actually be Warbreaker, and then I will continue chronologically. Kind of hard to believe he's only been publishing since 2005. Anyway, a number of Cosmere reading plans suggest reading The Emperor's Soul after Elantris, but really you don't need to. It is set in the same world as Elantris, but there's only just a couple of place names mentioned in asides, and that's about it. You can read The Emperor's Soul before Elantris, no problem. And as far as I understand it, you don't need to have read Warbreaker or The Way of Kings. And yes, I'd even say you can read this as your first Cosmere book without even reading Mistborn. And just a small note, I read it in my copy of Arcanum Unbounded. Now, the main character is a forger, which means someone that uses magic to imbue objects with memories of what they really are. For example, this painting here really is the Mona Lisa. And there's this brain-dead emperor who needs to have his brain or his soul forged in this same way. And the main character is being forced to do this because she's on death row. This is one of those cases where there was a lot of hype around this book, and I think I was expecting more than what I got. It's definitely still good. It's just not, wow, that was the most amazing thing I've ever read. I found it a little bit hard to grok the magic system at first. And I think that's perhaps because it's a little bit unbelievable. Because I kind of felt it was a little bit like programming, and I'm a programmer and I know how hard it is to do the simplest of things sometimes. And yes, I know it's magic and it's make-believe, but with any sort of magic system, no matter how hard or soft, you should be able to make up in your head some sort of conceptual framework to explain the magic system. And I found this one hard to believe. But having a bit more time to think about it, I actually think it's quite like prompt engineering on an LLM like ChatGPT. If you don't even know what I'm talking about, get yourself access to something like ChatGPT and try out something like this. And we get to use ChatGPT 5 because that was just released. Okay, I'm going to say pretend you are Brandon Sanderson. You have just published your book, your book, The Emperor's Soul. You are being interviewed in a bookshop that specializes in sci-fi and fantasy and are promoting the book. Imagine I am the interviewer. Alright, let's see what it says. Alright, I'll slip into my best Brandon Sanderson, fresh off a book tour mindset. You're on the role of the interviewer, so I'll answer as if we're sitting in that bustling sci-fi fantasy bookstore, probably with shelves of Pratchett and Le Guin peeking over our shoulders. You can start with your first question whenever you're ready. Would you like me to lean into his usual mix of world-building nerdery, humor, and writing process insights, or keep it more succinct and professional? Let's say go nerdy, but keep your answers short. Got it. All right. Okay. Tell me about your latest book. Well, The Emperor's Soul is my love letter to art and craftsmanship wrapped in a heist story. A heist story? Not sure about that. It's set in the Elantris world, but in a corner you've never seen, where magic works by rewriting the history of objects. It's short, sharp, and I like to think every page earns its keep. What were your influences? Alright, so it's giving answers. So this is interesting. It's mentioning The Way of Kings, because The Way of Kings was written before this book. And now here's where I think it's kind of like what I imagine the forger doing in the book, because I could say, repeat that answer, but make it more funny. So it's changed it to a mix of East Asian seal carving, the philosophy of forgery, and my own compulsive need to justify all the weird things I Google at 2 a.m. And my editor almost fainted when I turned it in. And then I could do something random like, okay, do the same, but imagine Brandon is obsessed with food. And so it changes it to say, and my quest to find the perfect dumpling recipe. I also wanted to prove I could write a book you could finish in one sitting, ideally between lunch and dessert. So hopefully you're getting the point here that I think the forger in the story is kind of doing this sort of thing, shaping the brain of this clone emperor to have a particular personality and know about certain things. And this book was written in 2012, so ChatGPT was way in the future. So it's really interesting that Brandon came up with this idea. But it's pretty cool that there's kind of a technology that now exists to almost do what was in that book. It makes me think of that cool quote from Arthur C. Clarke: any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Anyway, back to the book. The plot is really well done, and there's a satisfying conclusion. And one thing you can say about Brandon Sanderson, his prose is very easy to read. No, I don't think this book is the best thing since sliced bread, but it is a very decent read, and I give it 4 stars. Alright, my next Cosmere book will be Warbreaker, which I'll be getting to very soon. I will see you there.